Welcome to this process video where I'm going to show you how I created this phoenix design. Here's the beginning of the sketch where I've laid out the shape of the body, the tail and the wings. And here's a close-up of the head, which is the area I started. And now I've added on one wing, and I really wanted to be able to make the feathers of the wing turn into flames as I went, and obviously there are no references for phoenix birds that I could look up, so I decided to make this creature a hybrid between like the body of a swan and the legs and the wings and the head similar to an eagle. Here's a close-up of the feet. I decided to add some spots there. This is the beginning of the tail section where I've very lightly sketched in the shape of the flames. And here I'm showing you how I create those flames. So very softly sketching in, adding in some tonal work. As I said, pressing really, really softly with my pencil, just adding some graphite to these areas, and then I'll be softening and smudging all of that together in a moment. It doesn't really matter that you can see all the pencil lines there because they're all about to be blended. So I use a cotton tip and just rub it over the pencil and soften all of those lines together. And on the flames, I didn't really want hard edges on them either, so I'm softening the edges as well as the tonal work and using the cotton tip to trail out certain areas. Here I'm using an erasable rubber to rub back some of that pencil to provide a little bit more of a contrast, adding in the central vein of the feather, which then blurs out to become a flame. And with my pencil I'm defining the central vein of that feather towards the base of the feather and then softening it out as it becomes a flame, and adding in some of the little details on the edge of the feather, so it's got like a hard edge up that end, and then it will soften out as it becomes a flame. Just adding in more texture and tonal work into those little lines there. And then I'll be using my cotton tip again to soften those lines. As you can see I'm doing here, blending them out. And then adding in a few highlights with my kneadable rubber, which I can pinch to a very fine point. So it's almost like drawing in reverse, but with my eraser. There's a close-up showing more detail as the tail progresses. Here I'm working on the other wing and adding in some tonal work underneath the longer feathers. You can see that's already been done at the other end of those feathers from the short, the shadow from the short feathers showing there. And blending and softening that tonal work. Just going over the whole feather very softly with that cotton tip to add a very faint grey, especially around the edges where one feather casts a shadow over the other, and then more blending I've squeezed my rubber to a very flat shape, and I'm using that to draw in the central vein on those feathers. And then in a minute I will crisp those lines up using my pencil. And there's the wing with the next layer of feathers as they become flames. You can see that tonal work and all the detail on that feathers in this shot here. And there's the completed pencil design. So now I'm going to scan it, and I'm adding in a colour behind it and blending those two layers. And this is the final colour version from Photoshop. And you can see I've added in some colours underneath digitally, and then I'm blending in that pencil design over the top. So you can see both the pencil and the digital colour. And I've turned that into some products for my Redbubble store. But now what I want to do is create a repeat pattern. So on Photoshop I'm going to cut the design into 4, and I'm going to separate all of those 4 pieces. I'm going to start by swapping the diagonals. As you can see, I'm doing there and locking those into place. And then the other 2 diagonals swapping as well. Now if I was to leave the pattern just like this, it would be a regular repeat pattern, but what I want to do is like a half drop pattern. So then I'm going a step further and swapping these 2 quadrants around, and that's then going to give me this pattern which you can see here. But the problem with this pattern is that there's gaps and holes in it, which I'm not happy with. So what I'm going to do now is draw some extra flames in between and add them into the gaps, and this now is my final repeat pattern, which again I've turned into some products at my Redbubble store. So here is the final repeat pattern and just the coloured single pattern. And a special thanks to my patrons. And if you're interested in seeing more of what I do, you can join me on Patreon. Thanks very much for watching.